So to address this up front, I think it's not only more than okay for people to boycott seeing The Flash because they want to send a message that it's just not cool for Warner Brothers to have been supportive of an abusive person as the lead actor of this movie. I can't really think of an argument against that, choosing to boycott it, that is. Everyone else involved in the movie already got paid. They're clearly still moving ahead with other projects, whether or not this does well or not. I watched it in my capacity as a critic, and it'd be murky for that to influence the review proper, which is why this is up front. But I'll tell you this much, if a high-profile flop or two is what's needed to make studios stop rewarding abusive celebrities seriously as an imperative, then that wouldn't be the worst thing regardless of what I think of the movie. Do with that what you will. Okay, so right up front, yeah, by the time this review runs, people will have seen or heard about all the weird CGI cameos and all this and the controversy about who is and isn't in it, because it's already starting to hit the social media. I can see how it's accomplished, what it looks like. I'm not going to talk spoilers specifically other than to say I get why this is going to be the big thing everyone wants to focus on for this movie. Honestly, I don't feel that strongly about it. Especially the quality of the effect, which is very clearly an aesthetic choice trying to mimic a certain style of comic book art. The ethics of it overall are another thing, but discussion for another time. The fact is, whereas the complexities about Ezra Miller is a distraction that should be distracting because, famous people getting away with allegedly assaulting women, committing burglary, endangering minors is more important than whether or not a movie is good. The discourse about the ethics or non-ethics of CGI actor cameos that were very likely signed off on by whoever's prerogative it is to sign off on that kind of thing months ago, and where we crossed the moral event horizon about that way back during either Forrest Gump or Zelig years ago, amounts to a lot of talk about maybe 2 or 3 minutes of a movie. And The Flash is already at once messy, disjointed, deeply flawed, fascinatingly wrong-headed to the point of deeply angry in some respects, while also shallow and undercooked enough to be ultimately just kind of average. I guess that there's more than enough reasons to whack this one around like a red spandex piñata on a complete holistic narrative and filmmaking level that are much more compelling than making it all about one big hot button shiny object in the middle of it that just amounts to Warner Discovery's latest attempt to fail at having a big Marvel moment without actually earning it. And also, sidebar, while I don't love that one part everyone is mad at, the big non-CGI punchline they've chosen to end on is such a glorious ha ha go fuck yourselves to the last 3 decades and counting of toxic internet comic book movie fandom in general that I can't not respect the hell out of at least that. So yeah, cheers to the death of the Snyderverse, may it burn in hell. Shame about the rest of the actual movie though. Anyway, with a development hell timeline so long running that an entire vastly superior TV series based around the same character ran for many seasons, featured a bizarre cameo from this movie's star originally planned to tie into this, maybe, then didn't.
Found Barry Allen.
No! This should be impossible now.
It should be impossible now?
You don't know about the...
I don't figure this was possible.
Adapted the same storyline from the comics as this movie, and then ended all before this finally came out after dozens of directors, writers, scripts, retoolings, a global pandemic, and a lead actor's international crime spree. The most interesting thing that can maybe be said about The Flash is that after all this, it somehow manages to wriggle out from under all that baggage to stand up on its own as just actually a completely average, unremarkable superhero movie. Not a genre-redefining triumph like Across the Spider-Verse, not an emotionally resonant tearjerker like Guardians 3, not a generational event like Spider-Man Far From Home, but also not a franchise-destroying dumpster fire like Wonder Woman 1984 or Batman v Superman. Really just another Black Adam. An almost serviceable mediocrity until it flies off the rails, straining to be anything else. In the end, the DC Extended Universe dies as it lived, awkwardly, pointlessly waiting for the owners to finally give up and hire one of the Marvel guys to come in and show them how to make good movies. Envisioned 2 to 3 company handovers ago as a way to reboot and start over the failed DC continuity begun in Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, the premise here finds speed-powered superhero Barry the Flash Allen discovering that if he runs fast enough, he can go back in time. Apparently far enough back in time to forget that he already found this out in both versions of Justice League. He wants to use this power to change the events of the past so that his father won't be wrongly convicted for killing his mother, but his mentor Batman, as played by Ben Affleck, says that that's a bad idea because A, he also also apparently forgot the events of Justice League, where this turned out to be a great idea that saved the world, and B, he's the Batman, so of course he knows that superheroes need their tragic dead parent backstories to give them the necessary anger powers to be awesome at crime fighting. But because that sounds obviously stupid, even though the movie thinks it's very smart, Barry tries to save his parents anyway, but gets sidetracked and attacked by some kind of time travel monster whose shocking Act 3 reveal identity we're not supposed to just guess right away, and finds himself stranded in an alt timeline 2013 where his parents are still alive. Batman is the 1989 Michael Keaton version, but older now, and Superman is now a Supergirl played by Sasha Calais. So why is this supposed to be the bad timeline again? Because the best Batman ever and Superman is now a hot chick with 20 times the screen presence the last block of wood to play him ever had seems like a win to me, but yeah, since 2013 means it's also time for General Zod to show up, and we're doing a retcon where Barry was also in Metropolis during the events of Man of Steel and sad about not stopping superhero 9/11. This is the darkest timeline, and the movie becomes a Back to the Future and or Back to the Future 2 riff about putting continuity back into place, which is weird to do considering that Back to the Future's happy ending literally is premised on actually, go ahead, yeah, fuck the timeline. Your parents' lives will get better, your life will get better, Doc will live, you'll get a better car, and your dad's bully will be his slave. But yeah, that's what we're going with. The annoying younger kid character of the now cut short Justice League continuum now has to team up with an even younger, more annoying, because he hasn't had to experience loss and learn about responsibility version of himself and go through a bunch of trial and error attempts at thwarting the end of the world in order to have it literally beaten into him that the grown-ups were right about how trying to change things is bad because unforeseen consequences, and he should have just accepted that hard times will make him stronger. Shut up, Zoomer, you clearly weren't bullied enough, as literalized metaphor, right down to literalized Zoomer.
Message!
And I mean, I'm sort of joking there, but also sort of not, because what's bizarre and incredibly frustrating about The Flash is that while the core of it's just sort of average as a standalone movie, it's competently directed, there's some decent script beats, it flows well despite being too long, it's well structured and not boring, Keaton gives an actual performance, even while mostly getting "Hey, it's Michael Keaton saying Batman things" dialogue. Sasha Calais is a legitimately Star-is-Born level great as Supergirl. They should totally bring her back as that, or at least Power Girl, if they do that whole thing, and not just because of the costume. The more I've thought about it, what it's actually saying, the more angry I've actually gotten about it, but I'm not really sure if that's fair to the movie because I'm not sure anyone involved actually gets what the thing they released actually has to say, though maybe that's the better reason to be angry about it. Here's what I mean. The most notable thing about The Flash is that while watching it, you can feel every tortured step of the decade plus of development hell as one superhero movie trend, fad, and style got bolted onto it as the thing to imitate now in an attempt to make it work as the years went on. Most simply in how the two Barrys teamed up as bickering buddies storyline very clearly presents an original grimdark DCEU Flash versus jokey, funny Marvel-style take on the Flash, but goes back and forth as to which one it thinks is preferable and which one it's criticizing. Like at one point this was supposed to be, here's what we're changing into, and at other points it was a no, this is why we're better thing, but also at parts where entire sequences play out where you can pick out, oh, yep, that's where Deadpool suddenly got popular, oh, yep, that's where they knew the Snyderverse was over, oh, hey, there's where they're doing Endgame now. And it's weird to have such a defeatist, reactionary, retrograde theme as the moral of this movie, especially when this is supposed to be the young character for the younger audience one in the Justice League stuff, but also when it's the latest thing to do this multiverse business in a genre where everything from Loki to Far From Home to Across the Spider-Verse has come down on the opposite side of that. It doesn't feel like anyone involved here really wanted to make a movie where the literal implicit message turns out to be, shut up and stop trying to change the world, kids, especially if your motivation is making your own life less miserable. You'll just wreck everything, and besides, your billionaire boss is right that trauma builds character, so yeah, fridging is good actually. But that's pretty much the movie they've made. And look, it's generally not fair to mark something down for being morally appalling only when there's a degree of subjectivity to that, since it's hypothetically possible to make an artistically accomplished movie from a reactionary lens or even a repellent underlying theme. But any movie kind of has to at least know what it's about, and I feel like The Flash may genuinely have only arrived in such a strange place message-wise because it was rebuilt and restructured so often with so many different starts and stops that they fully lost sight of which version of which character was supposed to be learning what from whom and what was meant to be right, to the point that they don't even know what it's supposed to be. As in, it's not a bad movie because it ends up preaching pain is the best teacher nihilism as a moral imperative, though that's certainly a choice. But it is kind of a problem that everything in its tone and texture and aesthetic says that it doesn't think that's what's going on here. I can't remember the last time that I saw a movie less self-aware about plot beats it thinks are awesome and hopeful and uplifting, that the movie clearly wants us to read as heroic and I've learned my lesson stuff, but that the audience will be furious at. Or even just character decisions flat out. Audiences are likely gonna bounce off hard and go, no, that's not the good guy. That's not a heroic thing to do. And you know, at least in that respect, The Flash is finally a fitting epitaph for the DCEU that will now be buried under the thing, regardless of how it performs. Not really the worst version by any measure of anything it's trying to do, but as a thought object, it feels like one of the worst because of how badly and bizarrely it fails at all of the things that don't really look that difficult to do here. Call it a 5 out of 10? Man, I am glad this shit is over.